so good to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for being with us. Just a little bit of background. Rubes and I met through her wonderful husband, Roy, as a patient of mine. We realize that through sorrow and heartache and a lot of pain that we would be here talking about an incredible testimony of how God is still working in your life. And I think of recent times, Ruby came to see me and, I think it had been 4 years since I'd seen you last.
Yes, roughly.
Most of the hardship. You know what just stood out for me is your joy, that you still came here, same old Ruby, the same amount of joy, the same amount of life in you. And I just thought, how? So I think that's kind of what inspired me to ask you if you'd share your testimony here, or at least part of it. I know we all have lifelong testimonies. How do you maintain joy despite all the troubles that you faced?
First of all, I would like to thank God for giving me this opportunity, to thank you guys as well for sharing it. So that probably somebody could benefit off it, even if it's one person's, let it be.
Absolutely.
And my journey starts way back before COVID, pre-COVID. One of the younger kids, she was in varsity. She started sharing God's word with me. It was in our language, so I couldn't send it to my daughter. She wouldn't understand, or my son for that matter, because they didn't understand that much of the hectic language that was used. So for me, that was like, sure, every message was like such soul-relieving thing. And every time I listened to him, I felt like so much peace within me. And for almost 2 years, this kept going. And every day when she gets a message, I just listened, because it really touched me so much, to the point that I would want to wait to listen to the sermon. So every day after coming from work, I would listen, lying in bed. So maybe some days I fell asleep halfway through, but the comfort it gave me was, it's hard to explain.
Sure.
And it kept going. Then comes the COVID time. My mom and I were affected by COVID at that point. Initially, it was the two of us. My mom was 76 at that time, diabetic, obese, you name it. She had everything, but lived her life very happily. So, which I'm grateful and thankful to God for. And my daughter got to spend a lot of time with her, which is again a blessing. The fact that I brought her down from India on that very last day when she was really affected. And she was struggling to breathe. She kept asking me, am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? How do you look at someone and say, yes, no? Neither did I know the consequences of what's going to happen either. Roy did not say much. He knew, though. He had oxygen cylinders already brought into the house. He kept things ready. She wanted to, if at all she passes away, that must happen at home. And she wanted her body to be taken to India. And, those are all things that are not possible. But anyway, when we ran out of oxygen, or when we got to that stage where we were running out of oxygen, we had no choice but to take her to the state hospital. Even though we had full medical cover and all of that, it was that intense COVID time where people were in ambulances in the passages and all of that. The nurses, they told me, don't bring her there. So luckily the doctor in Frey, he was actually the head of the Frey at that point. He said, bring her here, I'll give her oxygen. So that was a big blessing. I took that. And little did I still didn't know that this is going to be the last. Anyway, I had to quickly send her. So sent her through with the ambulance guys. Then my son and his wife got, because they were state employed doctors, they were allowed to go in. Sure. So anyway, they went in a bit later. checked on my mom, and she was, she wasn't quite fine. She somehow realized that she was not at home. So she kept asking, why are you taking me to the hospital? Why am I here? Take me home. So, and Marissa started praying over her, and they just kept praying, kept talking, calming her down, all of that. And eventually, so she said, don't leave me and go. So they stayed with her for a while till she fell asleep, and then they left after that. And now there's a period that you can see, and then what are you going to do after? She fell asleep anyway. So by God's grace, she must have slept. I'm hoping that she slept for a while, and probably at some point must have woken up, and I don't know the rest of the story. They said they informed us early hours of the morning she passed away. So that was my mom. But I'm glad that I brought her here, and we had a good 2 years. I'm so thankful to God for that. So that's one big thank you to God, because she was in India. How would she have survived? I had no clue, because she was dependent on a driver, helper, everything. So I had to bury my mom. It was just me and my 2 kids. How can I express my emotions in front of my kid? Yeah. I was like, I did not show anything in front of the kids. The pastor came, prayed. 1 or 2 of our community members stood far away, or none. I can't even remember, because, it was that period where you couldn't.
You're mourning. Yeah.
I took it in. Somehow God gave me the strength, I must say. There's no other way. A person as feeble as me, it's so dependent on Roy for everything. All of a sudden, God gave me that strength to face it. Okay, I faced that. Coming back home, Roy being asthmatic, was done. So he was struggling to breathe. So I could see he was using the pump more and more frequently in the day itself. So the next day we go in for a test, and he turns out to be positive. His oxygen levels were okay. So that's all I'm testing, because that's all I knew about. And up to, I think, the 31st of December, when early in the morning, when we look at his oxygen level, it was 70%. So my tenant, I can't even say she's my tenant. She's like a family, So Rosemary Roy has also talked it must be a cremation if at all it happens, and things like that. Sure. So she knew that's probably after my mom, and the will was open on his desk. So he kind of is kind of, I'm thinking. He didn't tell me anything, but he had maybe thoughts going in his head. We took it on the 31st of December.
Oh, what a day.
Took him to the hospital. The mom was 24th, Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So 31st, again, I took the car out. Rosemary said, Uncle, we're going. So anyway, he listened to Rosemary. We took him. Again, did I know that this is going to be the last? The immediate thought was get oxygen, So when he was admitted, he sent me a picture. He had his phone on with him, and he sent a picture saying, see, look at me lying with no clothes on, He just he didn't want to go into the ventilator. That was something he always did not want to. But after the first, that oxygen CPAP. He was on the CPAP for a while. So after that CPAP thing, they had to move him to the ventilator.
Did he find it, or did he do it?
No, he just agreed to it. He didn't find it at all.
Okay.
Once you go into the ventilator, you're sedated.
Yes.
So I'm glad that he did not know anything about it, because He was sedated. The doctor, Dr. Bray, he's such an amazing person. I thank God for him itself. He is such a phenomenal person. He would write essays to me after seeing Roy each time.
Sure.
Whether it's 2:00 at night, early in the morning, whatever time.
Doctors doesn't not asked. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I have to send it to one of my friends. She's a doctor. She would sit and interpret these terminologies to me. And he was in the ventilator for almost 2.5 weeks. So in between this period, so I'm still hoping, because Dr. Brain's message is one day is good, one day is a little bit down. He has got infection. He kept getting infections in the ventilator. That is where it led to him going down and down. But then the next day again, the message would be good. So when you get a good message, you're hoping, it's getting better. But anyway, hoping, they need to feel disheartened like that, it's that in and out situation, yeah. So anyway, all I did was just pray at this. There's nothing I could do. But then my house was on fire one day. Added to at that point, my heart was so hard. Like nothing bothered me. Nothing affected me anymore. I couldn't cry. I couldn't show my emotions anymore. What is happening? As for my daughter, she's the only one in the house. She was studying, so her doors were closed. She didn't see. It was the bedroom TV that had a short circuit.
Yeah.
And I switched it off with the remote. And I switched it off with the remote and went. Caught fire, and behind it is curtains. So the curtains are catching fire, and it moved up like that. It went onto the ceiling boards, a part of the ceiling board also. But the entire room, when she came out, was covered in smoke. So she ran out of the house. Luckily, Rosemary again was there. They called the neighbors. I'm blessed with awesome neighbors. So they all pulled hose pipes from their house and then came in, forgetting the COVID and all of that. They all came in and put off the fire. And then that's when the fire engine itself arrives. And then a few more days later, 24th, and 23rd is when Roy passed away. Dr. Brain, he sent me a message saying, I never thought this will happen because he was getting better, but such an awesome person, and I really thank God. Yeah. And yeah. So every step of this roller coaster ride, or walking through the red hot coals of my life, I didn't want to show my emotions to my children, make them cry or make them feel, also they're all already going through that. They're also feeling
Lovable mother.
You want to be strong for them, but
yes, I didn't want to show. So then my kids, I don't know how they thought. They thought, Ma's not even crying, is something wrong with her? That thought came into my kid's head also. Don't necessarily have to cry. I just eventually accepted everything as God's will. And this is God's plan. This is how much God has planned for Roy. This is how many years probably he decided, because your time of birth and your time of death is not decided by a human being. So there it is. That is probably what it is. Or for my mom, this is the same thing. God decided on the time. He called them back when it was his time. Who am I to challenge him? Who am I to question him? I'm not allowed to even think like that. So my heart started softening after the fire. My son got married just before that. My mom brought a purse and everything, get all ready, all excited to go for the first grandchild's wedding. Didn't happen. And she's writing her final exams in her degree. So she had to go back and study in this based on my,
Wow.
yeah. So that was hard on her as well. Anyway, she wrote the exam, she passed. But that's another big God's race. I mean, how under those circumstances can you study? Can you pass? But I take this whole roller coaster ride as God's plan.
Sure.
And it also helped me, like wherever people needed help, I would talk to them about circumstances. I went back immediately to work itself because I didn't want to sit at home, think, and make things worse for myself. I went back immediately to work, and I'm grateful for going back to work so that I wouldn't have thought about things and made things worse. Don't let the devil have me.
God says there's a period to mourn and then we move on. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even have that period to mourn. I just trusted God. I just decided this is God's time for my mom. This is his time for Roy. And the fire, I have no explanation, but maybe God wanted me to go through that as well. The community was bringing in food and everything. I mean, they were bringing in food throughout the COVID season. Breakfast, lunch, supper, on a regular basis, they would bring.
Oh,
and then Melissa's mom came down as well to help us cleaning, washing all of our clothes. She didn't have to do all of that.
You saw the power of community. Is it not, as I'm sitting here thinking, I never forget Roy when I met him as a patient of mine in the hospital. And, every year after that, he would phone me and check in on me.
Yeah.
And I used to think to myself, who am I? That this busy man who sees so many people and does this, I know, for so many people, how can he remember me? His physio, out of all the people that have served him, and what you're describing, now is that power of community and how it came back to you.
Yeah. And he would make on Saturday, this made me really angry with it. This is one thing where I got angry. He would make food.
Yeah.
And he wants me to go with him and give it to these COVID patients. Like there were people living alone. So within our community, though, one or two. So then we had to go and give it to them. So he would call me. I was so angry. I said, you're seeing them enough. He didn't even have time to eat his food properly. Before that, the plate will fall off and he's fast asleep.
Sure.
And why does he now want to cook on a Saturday? Take it. And that irritates
a good
me.
heart.
But he was just such a servant.
But the messages that kept coming opened my eyes
To who
and I
he was.
saw
Yeah.
the other side of him. That is how he was to his patients. And because all the messages are coming on his phone, no one knew me. But it kept coming and coming. And then the more you read, you can see what he was for each person.
Wow. Goosebumps. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to work for
So
as Christians, is to be a faithful servant.
So sometimes he wouldn't even accept money because when you look at a patient and you see they're poor, he didn't do his private practice for money. He always told me, this is an oath that I've taken, and this is my way of serving the Lord.
Wow. And the topic that so many people are speaking today is that's what a lot of doctors lack. There's such
Even
a little
bedside manner, like the minimal.
there's just such a little bit of
Human.
humanitarianism in what they do. It's really about money. And that's why I say, to see and meet somebody like,
What's going to matter at the end of the day? If we're standing in front of the Lord and he says, did you feed me? Did you clothe me? Did you look after me?
Yeah.
Money's not.
No. That's what the first thing, I think one of my kids said it during the memorial service. What affected him was he told me that, people would say all day, like, problems to him and discuss the problem. And then these problems started affecting him. And then he would keep telling me, my brain's not shutting down because it's bothering him. It came to a point that it was started bothering him.
I could relate.
Yeah, that's where we gotta do it in God's strength. We don't do it in our own strength because it will eventually get us. You have to hand it to the Lord.
You can never do it. There's no strength. I'm just a mere human being.
We the vessel.
I depended so much on Roy for every single thing.
Sure.
And now all of a sudden I had to take on all of these responsibilities, one after the other.
You know what? You're reminding me so much of our mom, because our dad also passed when Amy was 8 weeks,
So 2 months.
and I was 4.
Yeah.
And yeah, you bringing to light, like, also my mom had to just have all of that put on her, all the stress with kids as well, like yourself. And it's like, you got to stay strong for your kids. And it's, I can't even imagine that situation. I can't stop myself from crying in front of my kids. Like, I don't know how you held that in and just was so strong.
No, it's just, that's when I will say the power of God. I mean, the power of God is the only thing. My faith was the only thing. Put it into a word, it's pure faith.
Wow.
Into one word. It's just up to now.
Believing in what you can't see. You don't know how you did it. You don't know
I don't know how
Yeah,
I did it. And I'm not that strong a person to do it either before at all. So you can imagine it was pure faith that guided me. And those messages from those pastors and
Before you
really
said it was
before.
before.
It was before.
And how long before? Like a couple of.
I've been listening.
Okay.
Ongoing.
And it was a new thing for you.
It was a new thing because it was something that I got hold of for the first time because someone sent it to me. And then I started following him because it really touched my heart. The way he said it. It was simple man. But the way he talks, it's just one verse from the Bible, but the way he communicated it relates it to his life. Everything made you so like, he also has been through terrible past, and he brings, every time he connects it to his own family too, it made you like, it touched me so much and it gave me the strength. And he keeps saying, if you give it to God, don't take it back. So I've given these issues, I've given this everything to God. I'm not taking it back. God has the solution.
That is such a good lesson, Ruby, because how many times do we do that? We like give it to him and then we start worrying again.
No, we take, especially when it comes to my kids.
Yeah.
I worry so much about my kids, even though they're adults. You still
never stop.
You never stop worrying. This is a process that's still happening in my life, I must say. It's still not fully there. As a mom, you want to.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to kind of step in.
You're ministering to us.
Life itself is a roller coaster, right?
You're just highlighting that, I think there's this misconception that Christianity, God's going to protect you always.
No.
And it's not like that.
No, even Jesus walked the very difficult path. Took the path on the cross. What I would like to tell anyone who's listening to this video would be, when you trust God, like what Amy just said, it's not going to be an easy road. Probably it's not at all going to be an easy road. But then God is going to guide you. You just have to trust Him. You just need to have that faith, and He will keep you going on and on. And my problems are not solved. It's going to be an ongoing process. As long as I live, I think we will have problems.
Yes. Especially in a broken world.
In a world, we will have problems. Jesus had.
And we got to remember, it's just this is such a short little, like it says a blink of an eye, like compared to eternity. This is like so short, So we got to keep the hope that although we're here suffering for a short time, we're going to be with God eventually for eternity.
You don't know what God is going to do with the rest of the story.
Yeah.
That's what I don't believe for a second that Roy's legacy would end with death there.
Nurse in St. Thomas. A South African a nurse.
Yeah.
He's named after Roy. His name is Roy. So because his name was Roy, one of the Indian people and nurses asked him, why is your name Roy? So he said, long ago, it was a doctor. His name was Dr. Roy Sakurai, who saved my life. So my mom went to Home Affairs and changed my name into Roy something.
That is so precious, Ruby.
Gave me goosebumps. God almost like when he works, he touches everybody. So it's not just, maybe he had to let Roy pass away and you learn something from that. The family's learning something from that. Like everybody's learning, all the truth is coming out in that moment. And I think he allows it so that the truth can come. Otherwise, if it just stays the same, like we're not going to learn those lessons. And it is so hard, but we got to understand that he does it for our good.
Yeah,
in the moment, it's not nice.
We just need to have that faith.
Yeah.
And that's hard. I felt right. At that point,
It
is so hard.
Yeah.
But somehow I just kept thinking of those pastor and that pastor and his. So the first thing I did when I went to India this time is last July holidays, I went to India. I said, it's quite far away. His church is, it's a small little church, but I told one of my friends, I said, I want to go there. Mm-hmm. So she said, no, come take the train. So they booked the train ticket for me. And I went to her place and they drove me down. They're Hindus, by the way. And they drove me down.
Testifying.
They are.
Hey?
They brought me down to this place. It's quite a distance, 6-hour drive from where she lives to this church. I sat in that church from 7 a.m. till 6:30.
Wow.
No water, no nothing. I think somewhere along we got a bun or something. I didn't even take water with me. But I was able to meet him and I was able to tell him. And I actually testified there.
What?
Yeah, I did testify there.
Wow. That's so cool. I feel like that was so healing for you.
Yes, you can see from the amount,
the joy in your
the
face.
church was overflowing. Outside, inside, everywhere they were.
And in the middle of India.
You could see somewhere where people's hearts are touched by his sermons.
Wow.
I wish those sermons could be translated so that you could actually hear. They were so comforting.
What?
You can translate.
What?
Yeah.
That's your calling.
What is the language?
It's our local language, which is Malayalam.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, because it's one of the local.
Yes, like a dialect.
Can you say Jesus is king in your language?
Devam Rajavan.
Yeah. Thank you, Ruby, for sharing.
So much. We really are so honored. And like you're saying, you've touched on so many lives through doing this. You're going to reach many more. And this is Roy's legacy living on.
Absolutely.
Even in his passing, even though he's not physically here, his spirit is with us. We know we're going to see him again. And so many lives are going to be touched from this act that you've done. So thank you for your bravery.
Thank you very much.
Comes in. Oh, I want to give you a hug. Well done. That was so good. Oh, thank you for keeping your faith. It's so difficult, but you know what? Like I said, this is so short. When we go to eternity, one day we see Roy. I can't wait to meet Roy.
He's an amazing man.
Because I haven't met him.
An amazing man.